والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وما بعد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. My dear respected brothers and elders and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, alhamdulillah, we have a very wonderful story for our Sahabiya of this, for our summer Halaqah programs. I've actually done the story of Sayyidatuna Khadijah radiallahu anha before, for sisters in specific. I just thought that it'd be nice to relive the experience again of speaking about her, and hopefully, inshallah, rekindling our own love for Islam, and inshallah working hard on our own marriages as well. And so we'll see that the fruits of that with Khadijah radiallahu anha, inshallah ta'ala. So I hopefully it ends up as long as I thought it would be. You just keep writing and writing and things keep coming up, right? MashaAllah. So inshallah, let's without further ado, let's get started, inshallah. Okay. So Sayyidatuna Khadijah radiallahu anha, and I really want to focus on her life and just certain salient qualities about her. Many other speakers might spend time speaking about her family and where she came from and things like that, but I really want to speak about the woman herself, radiallahu anha, and how much of an important impact she had on the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam receives her, which is really, really important. And I think we all, as husbands, first and foremost, for myself, we can all really benefit from that. And as sisters or wives or soon to be wives, if we're listening, then we can really reflect on what she does as a spouse, making sure that her husband is taken care of and provided for and nurtured properly, right? So we'll get into those things, inshallah ta'ala. So Khadijah radiallahu anha, she was born about 15 years before the year of the elephant. The year of the elephant is when the Prophet ﷺ was born. So it would make her about 15 years older than the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, Khadijah radiallahu anha, she is fully from the blood of the Quraysh, right? From her father and mother's side. Okay, her father is a nobleman, Khuwaylid, right? Khuwaylid is one of the noble figures of the Quraysh. Her lineage itself actually meets up with the Prophet ﷺ at this forefather called Qusay. And it's really interesting to think about because she's actually much closer than other Sahaba are, okay, in terms of linking up the Prophet ﷺ. Like if you think about Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, actually he is one generation behind Khadijah. So Qusay is where Khadijah radiallahu anhu meets up with the Prophet ﷺ, and the next forefather, which is where Nabi alayhi salatu actually meets up with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And after that, which is Ka'b bin Adi, or Adi ibn Ka'b, Adi ibn Ka'b, is where Umar radiallahu anhu actually meets up with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you look at the lineage, right, the seventh forefather would be Umar, the sixth forefather would be Abu Bakr, and the fifth one would be Khadijah radiallahu anha, right? So that's how close she is to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so she has been married twice previously to this man called Hind and Atiq. Okay, there were a few children she had from Hind, and she had maybe about one daughter from Atiq. And so her son Hind is probably the most famous. So her husband's name was Hind, and follow me here. Her husband's name was Hind, and her son was also named Hind. Okay, yeah, okay, no problem. He has a very famous hadith in the Shama'il of Tirmidhi, by the way. It's a very long hadith where he describes the qualities and the description of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's the one who does it because he was old enough and mature enough to give a very nice depiction. Actually, Hassan radiallahu anhu actually asked his khal, his maternal uncle. He says, I asked my khal Hind ibn Abi Hala about how the Prophet ﷺ was and looked and things like that. MashaAllah. Okay, so in any case, that was her husband from beforehand. In terms of where she got all her wealth from, because normally people know Khadijah radiallahu anha to be someone who has immense wealth. It's because of this inheritance that she received from her husband Hind, okay, before her. So when Hind actually passed away, Khadijah radiallahu anha received that inheritance from him. Okay, and so that afterwards she marries possibly Atiq. Maybe Atiq she was married to before. We're not very sure about which one she married first or second. But mashallah, she was very sought after. People wanted to marry her because number one, she is Qurashi. Number two is she has a lot of money. And the third thing is what? She's beautiful in herself. People only describe her as a woman of Jamal, a woman of beauty as well. Okay, so she's conducting large business transactions, right? She's a businesswoman, okay? To the point that the scholars have written about her that she is the wealthiest woman of Quraysh.
She's one of the wealthiest women of Quraysh, and some of them said that she is the wealthiest woman of Quraysh. Okay, all without leaving her veil. You're talking about someone who's working from home. You have your home office. She has her home office. She is so much in hijab, and she's so tahira, which is her nickname, which we'll get to later. She's so pure in the society where there's so much zina and so much burning of daughters and things like that. You all understand how bad like the Meccan society was. She is so pure. People are not even able to see her properly. That's how much in hijab she is. Okay, so she actually does all of this business transactions, things like that, all behind the veil. And so obviously, after her husband passes away or she gets divorced, Allah Ta'ala knows best exactly what happened. But when she is again single, people are looking to marry her. Okay, because again in their society, there's no such thing as an aib or a defect or a deficiency in someone being divorced. That's not the way they looked at it, right? So they're looking at her good qualities, and I hope we as Muslims can appreciate that. In Islam, we don't consider a divorce to be a defect of someone, and I'll get to that later, inshallah. So she has many suitors lined up. You can imagine, Quraysh are rich. Quraysh are businessmen. They're wealthy. She can choose from the wealthiest man. She could choose from the most handsome guy. She can choose from all the people of Quraysh, all the men of Quraysh, essentially. Like, she has that much power and that much leverage in the society. Okay, and her second problem is this: in terms of first not being married, second issue is this: her own agents, who she sends out to go do business, they're not trustworthy whatsoever, right? So she has to do all this stuff from behind the veil. So you can imagine that if an agent goes out to go do work for Khadijah, if there's a lot of profit, is he going to return with everything? He might just sneak some and put something away, right? So she actually has to send her own servants with a lot of these various agencies sends out to Syria. Because why? Because she needs to make sure that they're doing the right transactions, right business and whatever. So she sends out a lot of people. So she recognizes there's a lot of like not trustworthiness, untrustworthiness in the society. So she's working with a lot here. Okay, so she gets some advice from either her sister or Abu Talib himself. Her sister tells her that there is this man who's really good with sheep. There is this man who is really good with sheep. He's been working in the outskirts of Makkah. He's done a tremendous job, amazing job. He has a lot. If some narrations mentioned that he was working under her sister Hala, or her name was Hala, right? Maybe, and she said that he was so good that when it came time to pay him, he was so embarrassed he didn't even want to see me. So he asked someone else to pick up the money on his behalf. He's so shy, right? So she said that to Khadijah, her sister, said, Khadijah, if you need to hire someone, I think this is your man. Okay. Another narration mentions Abu Talib actually goes and says that, hey, I have this guy who's really good and he needs to learn business. So can he work under you? He's very honest and trustworthy. And obviously you and I know who it's going to be. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay. There are many intriguing things about this man. We can't speak about it enough, about how many interesting aspects he has about him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And she notices it, and she sees these things, right? In his small little businesses and his bigger businesses, right? It's only mentioned about one incident in specific, which we're going to get into right now, which is about his travel to Syria. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, actually, he returns from a business trip with Khadijah radiallahu anha's slave, whose name was Maysara. Maysara goes up with the Prophet ﷺ, and Maysara is there in one way to work with the Prophet ﷺ, or just working with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I only mean to say his name because at this time he's not the Prophet ﷺ. He'll soon get the prophethood in a couple of years, right? And so when he goes up with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to go and do business with him, number one, but number two is that he's actually checking the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeing his character, seeing how he is. And so what would you think Maysara is feeling working with this man? This guy's amazing, right? Abdullah ibn Abi Hamza, it's Hadith Abu Dawood. And I just want to stress this point about how trustworthy was the Prophet ﷺ. It's a very famous narration about him. Is that when Abdullah ibn Abi Hamza, Abdullah was a business partner with the Prophet ﷺ, back before he became a prophet. So Abdullah says that I told the Prophet ﷺ, I told Muhammad that, hey man, I'll come back with the money. You just wait here. I'll be right back. So Abdullah actually goes and he completely forgets that he left Muhammad ﷺ in a certain spot. So Abdullah, he is like just living the life, doing what he's supposed to do. And 3 days later, he remembers, oh man, I forgot to pay Muhammad his money, or I forgot to give him the value of the price. So then he rushes back to the same spot that he left the Prophet ﷺ, and he finds the Prophet ﷺ standing there. And Abdullah radiallahu anhu goes and says, I'm so sorry. And the Prophet ﷺ tells him, he said, you did such injustice to me. I've been waiting here for 3 whole days because you said you'd be right back. This is how trustworthy the Prophet ﷺ was. Okay? And Maysara is living the experience. He's seeing the Prophet ﷺ. He's being with him and he looks at his character, he sees how he is. And then, surprisingly on the trip to Syria, they meet a monk up there that's like, he's looking at him, he's asking his qualities, he's seeing his qualities, he's like, that's the prophet that's the next prophet. They're looking, that's the next prophet. Maysara's, he's jotting all this down because he has to give it back to his boss, Khadijah. Right? So he's going back with all his information. Okay? And then what happens is, surprisingly, as mentioned in a couple of books, Sirat al-Mustafa mentions it very beautifully, is that when the Prophet was coming back with Maysara, and Maysara tells Khadijah radiallahu anha later, and he says that I saw clouds just shading him. Clouds would just cover him. And Khadijah actually, while the Prophet was walking back, they're waiting for them, right? And then they see him coming back, and she sees the clouds shading him wherever he goes. And even to the point that some narrations mention that she saw angels shielding him. So she's like, this guy is not a normal person whatsoever. Okay, and I want everyone to recognize that in 2 different ways. Okay, and I want to also clarify something. When we tell the story about this, we often remember one thing about his business journey, is that when he came back, how much profit did he make? Double. That's all we really kind of remember. And I wish that wasn't the thing that we remember, right? But that's the only way we can tell the story, because we only remember things in money. Right? Do you think that she was amazed by the money of the Prophet? She's not. There was barakah. Clearly there's barakah. Working with the Prophet, obviously it's going to be barakah. No doubt about it. Right? But the thing was that it's not about the money here. Khadijah radiallahu anha, if she wanted to, she can marry any Qurashi who has 10, 20, 100 times the wealth of the Prophet, right? It's not about the money, because it's never been about the money. What drew her to the Prophet, number 1 is his qualities. You notice how trustworthy he was, how amanat dar, right? How respectful, how kind, how sincere he was. She saw all of these qualities in him. Okay, so that's number 1. We want to remember that. That's not, the reason is not because of the money or the profits or the barakah and the wealth. Because people are like, wow, after that she wanted to marry him. No, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is this, that the signs of prophethood began emerging from him. Who's Khadijah radiallahu anha's cousin? Okay, there's this man called Waraqah. Waraqah bin Nawfal is a scholar of the religions of the past of Christianity and Judaism, essentially, right? He knows how to read their books, okay? And so he is someone who's well versed. He's actually staying in Mecca because he's expecting that the prophet, the next prophet, will come out from here. And who's this cousin to? Khadijah radiallahu anha, okay? So now, like you have like that cousin who's like, he's like totally a Maulana, and like he's so boring. Every single time he comes to my house, the only stuff he talks about Maulana stuff. It's like, can you make wudu with that water? Can you wipe on that? That's all the stuff he talks about if the blood flows. And you're like, God dang, this guy doesn't care about anything other than poop, pee, and doo-doo and stuff like that. That's the only thing he talks about, right? And so she is, Waraqah is only when he's going to meet Khadijah or he's going to meet any of his family members, like, hey, by the way, guys, the next prophet is coming. Like that's what's on his tongue. That's what he's known for. That's actually, by the way, what Khadijah goes to him for later on because of that. So she had knowledge that the signs of this prophet, how does he look? How does he act? What are certain things? What are some of his miracles? All that stuff she is well aware of. So she sees it all in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? So now so that's the second reason. And a third important reason, which is actually just the overarching reason, okay, which is her nickname, which is Tahira. Her nickname is Tahira. Tahira means what? The pure. She is known in that horrible society, or that disgusting, vile society of Makkah, where zina was on sale, where you could commit so many haram indecent acts, where cheating, lying, deception was there, all these things, and women were in such terrible clothing and things like that, right? Very much akin to Manhattan of today, by the way. Okay, Tahira, she was nicknamed Tahira. Okay, why? This is a name which is a sample from Sayyidatuna Maryam alayhi salam. Okay, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Maryam alayhi salam in the Quran, Allah ta'ala says, وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Maryam alayhi salam that we had purified you. So Maryam alayhi salam, in an indirect way, her nickname was Tahira. And Khadijah radiallahu anha, being the best woman of her time, is nicknamed Tahira. Okay? So being a very pure woman. And I wanted to stress this point. If you look at Khadijah radiallahu anha's biography, you will see that she was either divorced or widowed or whatever. Okay? And then you and I would think, but isn't she divorced and widowed? Well, I want everyone to recognize this point, that look, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, all of them are either divorced or widowed, except for one, Aisha radiallahu anha. Being divorced or widowed is never a defect. To the point that scholars literally under certain ayat in Surah Tahrim actually describe the virtue of marrying a woman who has been divorced or widowed, because she knows how to take care of her husband. It's better than someone trying to figure out what to do. Okay? Not to get too much into details, because I have some children on here. But the point is that, mashallah, the point of being divorced or widowed is never aib. We've made an aib in our society. Allah to protect us. It's not an Islamic value. It's not an Islamic thing that we learned from our deen. We learned it from our culture, from our society. In reality, if we look at the Prophet's own life and the life of Sahaba, they never ever saw this thing as a defect. And it would never ever take away from the status of Khadijah that she was either divorced or widowed. We should seek Allah's protection. If we have hatred and animosity or a bad feeling for widowed women, remember that your mothers are widowed. Remember that your mothers were divorced. And then we should rethink how we see a widowed or divorced woman. We ask Allah for guidance and tawfiq, inshallah. Okay? But what was it? She didn't want to marry any rich guy. We talked about it. She didn't want to marry any wealthy man, any noble man. In reality, again, talking to Waraqah, right? And seeing her own experience with her suitors. She's not desiring anyone of this life. She doesn't care about the money. She can get the money from other men. She doesn't want it. She could have married any man for that reason. She could have married for any status. She could have married the king of Quraysh, whatever, right? The leader of Quraysh. She could have done that, but she didn't. She doesn't care about those things, okay? And so what I'm trying to stress here is that the nickname of Tahira was not just because people were like, wow, she's a very Tahir woman. It's because what they say is what? They say that the qalamul khaliq ala alsinatil khalq, right? The pen of the Khaliq, the pen of Allah Ta'ala is on the tongues of people. When Allah Ta'ala wants people to know something, He just makes people talk about it. So what happens is what? The name of Tahira spreads for Khadijah because why? Because Allah Ta'ala says she's Tahira. You need to know that she's a Tahir woman. She's a very pure woman. So it's not only that the Prophet ﷺ loved Khadijah. Who else loved Khadijah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved Khadijah. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the best woman in the world to His Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and He gave the best man to her. Because there's no good enough man for her except for Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I hope that it's clear. Because why? They were a perfect match. What is the name of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? What is his nickname? Al-Amin, the trustworthy. And what is her nickname? Tahira. They just belong together. They just belong together. They were a perfect match for each other. So Allah Ta'ala made it like that. And if you don't believe me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, At-tayyibat lit-tayyibin. If the Prophet's first wife is going to be the quote-unquote the best wife or the perfect match for him, the one that can handle everything for him, she has to be the most tahira, the most tayyibah, because the most tayyib man is Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah give us guidance and tawfiq, inshallah. So now Amin and Tahir are together. Allah chose these names for them. Okay? And I want everyone to really reflect about this. About the final thing about Tahira is that think about any controversy about Khadijah. Think about it. Okay, let me ask you another wife of the Prophet. Think about Aisha. Were there any controversies, quote unquote? Like any things that people spoke about? You could probably mention a couple of things, right? Because of the fact that people tried to defame her, they accused her. That actually happened for a couple of the wives of the Prophet, honestly speaking, right? But you can't think of any controversy about Khadijah. Because there is none. Right? This is something that's ajib about this ummah, is that no one disagrees about her. Even the Shia don't disagree about it. They're like, yeah, otherwise we're not really sure about. But Khadijah, she has to be there because Fatima, right? So they kind of like, it's like Allah Ta'ala preserved her name on a very high level because she's like Maryam alayhi salam in that regard. Okay? And in an interesting way, she's actually a little bit elevated above Maryam because Maryam alayhi salam was called the wife of God, right? Because of how pure she was. But no one talks anything about Khadijah radiallahu anha at all. At all. Think about it. And just things for us to reflect on. So now she wanted to marry the Prophet based on these things. So she actually has a very interesting way of delivering the message to the Prophet, right? So she sends her servant Nafisa. Nafisa goes to Muhammad and says, "Hey Muhammad, what is stopping you from getting married?" And he goes and says, "I don't really have a lot of money. I don't have anything to get married with," right? And then Nafisa goes and says, but if this is sorted out, your money problem, and a woman of wealth, of mal and jamal and kafa'a, right? A woman of wealth, beauty, and compatibility, meaning she's from the same tribe as you, if she proposes to you, would you have any other reason to reject her? And then the Prophet ﷺ goes and said, but who is that woman? Come on, that doesn't exist. That's like a jannati. That's like a jannati, right? Yeah, you are getting a jannati, because she goes and says what? It's Khadijah. Khadijah is the one for you. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ says, if that's the case, then I'll be fine with it. So then this entire discussion starts happening between the walis, right? Hamza, Abu Talib, Amr ibn Asad, because her own father, Khadija's father, actually passed away. So her uncle Amr actually handles the marriage. So they actually come together. Abu Talib comes. This is a joyous occasion, right? Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad is being married off. Abu Talib read the khutbah. He talks about how great they are, how great of a couple they'll be, and all this stuff. And even though he goes and says, even though my nephew don't have any money, don't worry, he's a great guy. He has great character, mashallah. Because it's all family stuff here, right? And so the dowry was set at 500 dirhams, which is generally the quote unquote sunnah dowry, mashallah, for the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. And a cow was slaughtered for the walima. It was a very Mubarak time, mashallah. Very Mubarak time. Okay, in terms of their marriage and how blissful and how happy it was. Khadijah radiallahu anha had all of his children, except for one, obviously, right? But every single other child was from Khadijah radiallahu anha, from his wives, right? Radiallahu anhunna, Qasim, Tahir, Abdullah, Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, and Fatima radiallahu anhum. May Allah be pleased with all of them, right? They were all from Khadijah radiallahu anha. She has about basically 7 kids or so, okay? And so now the story continues, right? This is all from age 25 to about age 40. The Prophet was experiencing all of this stuff. When the Prophet returns from Mount Hira, okay? And you all know what happened in there. He meets Jibril alayhi salam, who like bear hugs him and like puts him in that hold and tells him like, read. And so the Prophet actually comes back. I want everyone to think about it, right? If you're coming back from a very traumatic situation, where do you go? Where would you go? So maybe some of us would be like, all right, I gotta head to the masjid, right? So we might have went to the haram, right, to ask for whatever. Some of us might go to our friends, like the Prophet says his best friend is Abu Bakr at this time. Can clearly go and knock at his door, be like, oh, I need some help here. But he goes where? Goes straight to his wife, because that's where he finds his refuge. That's where he finds his shelter. That's where he finds his happiluni. So he goes and says, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, laqad khashitu ala nafsi. Cover me. I fear for myself. I fear for my life. So he goes and tells her this, okay? Now, I don't mean to critique or criticize or belittle any wife of today, but I just want to clarify something. After 7 or 8 years of marriage counseling, I just want to highlight something, okay? She immediately does not ask him what happened. She waits, okay? Why is this important? Because generally what happens is, and what I notice for sisters, again, I'm just saying it because of what I've seen, what really doesn't really help a marriage, is that sometimes the husband will come home and he's not ready to talk. And sometimes what the wife will do is try to force him to talk, okay? And so what I want every sister to understand is your husband is not mad at you. Okay? He just needs a little bit of time. Okay, so that's something that sisters may have to reconcile in their minds, is that, and speaking from being a man myself, sometimes the only way for us to cope with something is not to talk about it, just to be silent. We just kind of need to get through it in our heads. And then we can talk about it. So look at this incident, and she's amazing. She doesn't go and say, hey, what happened? Tell me, come on, you look so scared and worried. Look at what the time it is and stuff like that. She doesn't say anything. She actually just waits for him. And so your husband is not mad at you. He'll never be mad at you. He loves you. Mashallah, he married you, right? So remember that sometimes he just needs a little bit of time. And you'll notice, mashallah, if you give him that time, he will open up, okay? Provided you try to help him with the second wife, which is the WhatsApp. Which, if you can handle that, mashallah, you are also jannati, mashallah. But just give him some time, and you'll notice, inshallah, that it will open up. And we should discuss these things. A lot of these things aren't talked about, right? There's some miscommunication here. So then he tells her what happens, and he says about Jibril came to me, this angel came to me, and things like that, and I fear for my life. I don't know what to do, right? He's so worried. And so then she goes and gives this amazing speech. She says, "Kalla, la yukhzika Allahu abada, innaka latasir rahim, wa tahmilu al-kal, wa taksibu al-ma'dum." وتقري الضيف وتعين على نوائب الحق, right? Sayyidatuna Khadijah radiallahu anha goes and starts to extol and talk about the great qualities of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She says, Kalla, never. How do you think that you're going to be, you feared for your life? Allah will never disgrace you. La yukhzika Allahu abada. Never will Allah disgrace you. Because of these amazing qualities you have. You maintain family ties. You carry the burdens of people. You try to help people out. You shoulder the benefit. You have no one else to lean on in the society, but everyone comes to lean on you. You think Allah will disgrace that type of person? You provide for those that have nothing. You serve the guests, and you help those who are suffering for the truth. And the ulama have written that if people have these qualities, even if they're a non-Muslim, Allah will take care of them in the world. Because of what? These are amazing qualities to have. We ask Allah that we can have these qualities. So she goes and starts speaking about the Prophet ﷺ and his great qualities. She doesn't start to berate or to belittle him. A lot of times what happens is, because of being married for so long, they're like 15 years in. A lot of us haven't even reached that I don't know what stone that is, but whatever, that milestone, whatever. Like we haven't reached that level, but imagine 15 years in, like the arguments and the fights start from like year 2, like imagine 15 years, like, yeah, you've been eating too much curry, man. Like, yeah, like that's because you left the TV on and that's why you saw all these ghosts and, the jadoo in the booth and the, whatever. We start to fight so much. Like, there's so much fighting, but look at what she's saying. She's not here to argue with him. She's not here to fight with him. She's not here to berate or to belittle him. She actually just goes and praises him. Because that's what we need in a marriage. A marriage actually needs people to praise each other, to look at the good qualities and overlook the bad ones. Okay, not to say there are any bad qualities of Prophet ﷺ, but that's what a marriage requires. And that's what we're learning here. And she goes and says, إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولِ اللَّهِ حَقًّا. You are surely the messenger of Allah. She says, you are surely the messenger of Allah. So what does she do? She says, I'll prove it to you. Let's go to Waraqah. They go to Waraqah together. Waraqah is spoken to about what happened, the situation. And Waraqah, her cousin again, goes and says, this angel that came to هَذَا النَّامُوسِ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ عَلَى مُوسَى. This is the same angel which Allah sent on Musa. Right? He goes and says that he's like, congratulations, right? He goes and says, how frustrated am I? I wish I could be alive, because he's kind of old right now. That I wish I could be alive when the people exile you. Like contrast this to what Khadijah radiallahu anha was doing. She was trying to make him calm down. And Waraqah's like, congratulations, people are gonna kick you out of the town. Like, and the Prophet says, "Awal mukhrijiyahum, are they gonna exile me?" And then Waraqah says, "Yes. Look, no one has brought what you have, except they've been opposed." He said, "Wallahi, I wish I had life that I can join you. I will help you if I lived for that moment." Of course, Waraqah passed away earlier than that. But Khadijah radiallahu anha one time sees him in a dream. She sees him with white clothing, and she asks the Prophet ﷺ about it. The Prophet ﷺ says that, inshallah, he's a person of Jannah, because he did accept the Shahada at that moment. Allah knows best, of course, at the end of the day. Okay? And of course, that Khadijah radiallahu anha accepts Islam. Okay? And so Ibn al-Athir rahimahullah ta'ala says, Khadijah awwalu khalqillahi ta'ala aslamat. Aslama. Khadijah radiallahu anha was the first of Allah's creation to accept Islam. By ijma'il muslimin. No one has any disagreement about this. Who was the first Muslim after the Prophet ﷺ? The first one to take the Shahada? Khadijah radiallahu anha. No doubt about it. Okay? Ibn Ishaq describes it, says that what? She was his truthful advisor at home. She was waziratu sidqin. She was someone that he could rely on at home. The Prophet ﷺ is taught soon after by Jibreel ﷺ how to make wudu and how to pray. Jibreel ﷺ comes and teaches him. Okay? He actually opens up like some water and they make wudu together. And then he's taught how to pray too. Now, who's the first person the Prophet ﷺ goes and teaches? Khadijah radiallahu anha. Who prays with him? Khadijah radiallahu anha. Because there's no one else, right? They're all praying together. Khadijah radiallahu anha and his family's praying, alayhi salatu wasalam. They're all praying together. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ is now going to go out and give his da'wah. He's now received his actual occupation from Allah. His actual job. He goes and gives da'wah. And he endures a lot from Quraysh. I can't describe to you and the pain and the torment and the sacrifice the Prophet ﷺ receives. He's in one time where he was in sajda, they actually dropped the intestines of a camel on top of him, trying to kill him. The Prophet ﷺ is spat in the face. He's attacked and he's abused, ﷺ, by many things, not just by physically speaking, but by words. They call them what? Sahir, Kadhab, Majnoon, Sha'ir. They call him all these terrible names. They say magician, liar, poet, madman. You are They criticize the Prophet ﷺ on so many levels. Okay? But look, when he goes outside and it feels like Jahannam outside, it has that feeling of Jahannam outside. He goes home and finds it's a Jannah. Because why? Who's there to take care of him? Khadijah radiallahu anha. She would come and serve him food. She would come and tend his wounds. She would come and speak to him about his day. She would ask him how everything was. She would speak to him and talk to him and encourage him and tell him to keep going. إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولِ اللَّهِ حَقًّا. You are truly the messenger of Allah. She would keep telling him over and over and over again, don't worry Muhammad, don't worry Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're fine. You're fine. He could speak to her when literally there was no one else for him. No one else for him. Okay? She helped him in a time when there was no one to support him. In reality, in terms of this is something which we could say about the other wives, and this is something again of just a historical fact. There's no other wife who could come close to this, because no other wife was there. Everyone else came where? When the Prophet migrated to Medina, basically, right? And so they were in the time where Islam was kind of on the rise. No one was in it when it was like skydiving down. No one was there when the abuse was there, when the slander was there, when Abu Lahab is his neighbor and criticizing him and screaming at him and shouting at him from literally across the wall, and Abu Lahab is laughing about him. When his son dies, right? When the Prophet his children die and he has no one to go after him, right? They're all criticizing him and abusing him. He doesn't have any offspring, any male offspring that live after him. Who's at his home to take care of him? Khadijah's like, it's fine. It happens. It's okay. You're the messenger of Allah. Keep going. Keep going. She's always there to provide for him. So in reality, she was his pillar. And like we say very famously, there's always a woman behind the man. He is the woman behind the Prophet ﷺ. She's always there behind him, supporting him. And so now one time Jibreel ﷺ comes down to the Prophet ﷺ and says, Ya Rasulullah, O Muhammad, Ya Muhammad, Hadi Khadijah, Atatka bi ta'amin wa sharab. Khadijah is coming to you with food and drink. Okay? And then فَبَشِّرْهُ, when she does, فَبَشِّرْهَا بِسَلَامٍ مِّن رَبِّهَا وَسَلَامٍ مِّنِّي. Okay, right? She says that when she comes, give her the glad tidings of salam from me, from her Lord, and salam from me. So Khadijah radiallahu anha is, you can get salam from Jibreel, which happened to, if you remember, we talked about Aisha radiallahu anha before. Aisha radiallahu anha received salam from Jibreel, and she actually responds with salam. I don't know if anyone else received salam from Allah. I don't think anyone else received that salam from Allah. Right? MashaAllah, she's exclusive in that regard. Okay, and then وَبَشِّرْهَا, give her glad tidings بِقَصْرٍ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ مِنْ قَصَبٍ لَا صَخَبَ فِيهَا وَلَا نَصَبٍ. And then give her glad tidings of a palace in Jannah made of a pearl. Okay, I've never constructed anything from a pearl. I think maybe engineers can help me out with this, but I don't think it's very easy to use pearls and make something. I don't think it's very good building blocks, right? You don't really play Minecraft with pearls, right? You don't really build things like that. But the thing is that the entire palace is constructed from a pearl. Allah Ta'ala knows best. I think about the necklace that she had. Maybe it was a pearl necklace. There are certain indications, certain highlights there. Okay. وَلَا نَصَبَ فِيهَا وَلَا صَخَبَ فِيهَا وَلَا نَصَبَ. There is no noise in that house, in that palace, and no tiredness as well. So, and why are these two things mentioned? When you think about Jannah won't have loud noises. Jannah won't have anything that you feel like it's uncomfortable. Jannah won't have tiredness. Everyone knows that. I think everyone knows that. Jannah doesn't have tiredness and Jannah doesn't have loud noises. Why are these two things being mentioned about this house? Because Khadijah radiallahu anha, if you think about her worldly life, are there loud noises in her worldly life? Are people yelling at her husband? People shouting at him? People abusing him? Yeah. You think people are not abusing her? You think any woman wants to go and see her in Quraysh? You think people want to meet her anymore? You think people don't have insults and terrible things to say to her? Life is not easy for the people of Deen. Life is not easy for the people of Deen. That's what we're learning here. Okay? Shouting, yelling, abuse is very common. People won't like you. People will say something. People will say something bad about you. By you being a good person, people will hate you. You know that? And I don't want to say it like as a oh my God, don't be a good person. But I'm just letting you know, as a reality, you gotta do it for Allah. If you're doing it for people, no one's gonna be happy with you. Absolutely no one's gonna be happy with you. After some time, years in advance, they'll be happy with you. But in the beginning, everyone's gonna hate you. No one likes you. You think what? You're gonna do ihsan for someone and people are gonna be like, thank you, brother? They're gonna, as soon as you do the kindness to them, they're gonna forget about you. You help people with their marriages, you help people with getting a good life together, you help them with a lot of things, completely forget about it. Nobody remembers a single thing. Allah to protect us, we're not doing it for them anyways. لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We're not looking for any praise or any thanks from you, right? And so now she has to listen to this shouting, yelling, and abuse from even her neighbors, okay? The second thing is what? Her husband comes home every day and he is tired. He is exhausted. He is fatigued. We are tired from working. The Prophet is tired from giving da'wah. The Prophet is described in the Quran like he's swimming. The entire day feels like a swim. An entire swim he's doing the entire day of working, giving da'wah, and inviting people to Islam. And he's coming home like this. So, that feeling in the heart will come. It comes in the heart of anyone. Any wife, any good wife would think, man, it'd be nice to live with my spouse in a place where we could just relax. Where there's no noise, and there's no tiredness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells her, oh Khadijah, congratulations, you get a house made out of pearls, and you get a house where there's no noise and no tiredness. You can live happy with that. And that's why they said, without a doubt, there's a hadith as well, Ibn Abdul Bar, he narrates it, but Imam Zahabi also quotes it as well. He says, the Sayyidatu Nisa al-Alamin fi zamaniha, the leader of the women of the world in her time was Khadijah. Without a doubt. In terms of the rankings, the first woman, the greatest of all women is Maryam, right? Next will be Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun. Third one will be Khadijah, and last one will be Fatima, radiallahu anhunna. May Allah be pleased with them. Okay, that's usually what Ibn Abdul Bar he brought as a narration as well. He said it's a Hasan hadith. Allah Ta'ala knows best as well, but mashallah, she's known as the woman, the leader of the women of her time. Okay, and so mashallah, she excelled. She earned that. So after these years of being with the Prophet ﷺ, eventually what happens is around the 4th or 5th year of the prophethood of the Prophet ﷺ, they actually end up going to the valley of Abu Talib, which was a boycott, if you remember. Okay, and in those 3 years, they're actually not able to purchase anything because they jacked up the prices so much that anyone from Abu Talib's tribe could not buy anything from the normal markets. So you can imagine that if you can't buy any food or drink, eventually you're going to run out of food and stuff. Even the money, right? If you want to spend it on it, it just eventually you're going to run out as well. So they're actually suffering in that valley. But something really interesting happens. They find, at certain nights, a camel is like kicked and is brought to the entrance of the valley, the mouth of the valley. And they see that this camel has food on it, like tons of food. Biryani, chawal, whatever you're thinking of, right? It has tons of food on it. And they're wondering, where did this come from? So there's a certain nephew. His name is Hakim ibn Hizam, who's the nephew of Khadijah radiallahu anha, who's making sure to provide for his aunt. So even when they're in a time of suffering, who's bringing all the khair? It's because Khadijah radiallahu anha is there. This is what the Prophet has in his house. That Allah Ta'ala brings so much barakah because of this woman radiallahu anha. Okay, when they leave the valley, Abu Talib actually passes away. And about 3 days later, Khadijah radiallahu anha also passes away. Now the Prophet ﷺ could have coped with Abu Talib's passing because Khadijah radiallahu anha is at home, she can care for him. But after Khadijah goes, who can help the Prophet ﷺ? Who's there to support him? Who's there to provide for him? No one is there anymore. The Prophet ﷺ has to go it alone. Aisha radiallahu anha says that she passed away at age 65. Right, and these were extremely gloomy days. We're talking about the saddest days. The year was actually called Amul Huzn, the year of grief for the Prophet ﷺ, because there was so much that was happening. He could not bear with that Khadijah radiallahu anha would go, that she would never come back to him in this world. Okay, but I want to mention this. So the Prophet ﷺ has to continue. He continues. So then they arrange other marriages for him. In that time, he marries Sauda radiallahu anha and Aisha radiallahu anha. Right, he starts to marry the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the other mothers that we have right, at that time. But I want everyone to recognize this. Okay, the story of Khadijah doesn't end here. True love doesn't end at death. True love will never end at death, because to a believer, death is just a temporary separation. We're all going to get back together anyways, right? And so to the Prophet ﷺ, he knows his Khadijah is coming back. He knows he's going to meet Khadijah radiallahu anha again, and he never stops mentioning her. He never forgot her. And I just want everyone to notice these things. Okay. When it came to getting gifts, in wherever the Prophet would be, he would get gifts, and then he would send gifts back to her friends, Khadijah radiallahu anha's friends back in Makkah. He'd make sure to give these things, because why? Because he wants to make sure that he maintains the ties with Khadijah radiallahu anha whatever way he can. So even her friends, he makes sure to support them. Then what do we find? That one time, Hala actually comes and knocks on the door of the Prophet ﷺ, and she goes and says, she says, Assalamu alaikum. And she starts to speak. And so the Prophet was actually hearing this at the door. When Hala is knocking and saying, Assalamu alaikum, he thinks it's Khadijah. Because normally what happens is brothers generally sound the same, and generally sisters sound the same. So then the Prophet ﷺ actually thinks it's Khadijah. So then he actually gets up, he's like, Khadijah's back. And then he opens the door, he's like, it's Allah, but he's always like in the back of his mind, she's always there. If you're talking about true love, you know what it means to be in love with someone is that you can never forget them. It's like they left such an impact, such a striking impact on your heart that they left a mark that can never ever be healed in this world until you can see them again. That's what true love is. That's why when people have like non-Muslim boyfriends or girlfriends, they don't really know what love is, because you're risking that person to go to Jahannam and you're going to go to Jannah. Congratulations. for being a very smart person. Unfortunately, forgive me for being rude about it, but that's what it is, right? You're never going to see that person again. How could there ever be true love? May Allah protect us and give us tawfiq, inshallah. If it's true love, you will try to get them in a halal marriage, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah make it easy for all of us. When Abu al-As, who is a prisoner at the time, at Badr, right? This is another incident where Abu al-As is the son-in-law of the Prophet ﷺ. After Badr, he was captured by the Prophet ﷺ. He was on the non-Muslim army. So he's captured by the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? So Zainab is in Mecca. They're all basically in Medina. And Abu al-As is there and stuff like that. So the Prophet ﷺ gives a message out. He says, if anyone wants to get ransom for these people, just send some money, send some stuff, and we can arrange the ransom to be done so you can take your family member back. So Zainab radiallahu anha is like thinking like, what can I send to my father to bring back Abu al-As as soon as possible? So then what she does is she takes off her necklace. She said, just give my father this. Just give my father this necklace. Okay? So then the necklace is taken and it's brought, and the Prophet ﷺ sees the necklace. Immediately he recognizes it. He says, where did this necklace come from? And then he says, from Zainab. He said, that is Khadijah's necklace. That is Khadijah's necklace. It was Khadijah radiallahu anha's gift to her eldest daughter for her marriage. Which inshallah, when we get a chance, we'll talk about Zainab, because her story is like second to this story. Because I think that's like amazing story that we need to also learn about. But this was Khadijah radiallahu anha's gift to her. Okay? And so then the Prophet ﷺ says, can you just give me the necklace? Bring my daughter here. He's completely free to go. just give the necklace back. The Prophet is not gonna, because this reminded him too much of Khadijah. When some Sahaba asked the Prophet, how was Khadijah? How was Khadijah? The wrong move. The Prophet ﷺ said, the only thing we get what? Kanat Khadijah kada wa kada, kaita wa kaita. This is literally what we only get. Because when the Arabs say kaita wa kaita, kada wa kada, they're saying so many things, but you can't write it down fast enough. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ was not known for this type of speech. He was known for slow and like metered speech. You could count his words. But when Khadijah came up, he just kept talking. He would just keep talking. To the point that they said, like, Keita, where do I stop? Where do I start? Where do I get? You just have to meet this woman. You have to see her. You have to experience her. You don't know about her. How much he loves her. You just can't stop talking about her. To the point that you and I know and probably thought that Aisha radiallahu anha was like the quote-unquote best beloved wife to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? She actually said this. Okay? She said whenever the Messenger ﷺ would mention Khadijah, he would never get tired of praising her. And he would never get tired of seeking forgiveness from her. Okay? He would just start talking about Khadijah in front of his other wives, and the Prophet will keep going. Okay? He knows how jealous they are. Okay? And you and I know how jealous Aisha radiallahu anha is. He mentioned her one day, Aisha radiallahu anha says, he mentioned her one day, and jealousy carried me. She said, Hamalani al-ghayra. Hamalatni al-ghayra. That ghayra took me. Jealousy just overwhelmed me. I couldn't handle it anymore. I want you all to, by the way, to know, Aisha radiallahu anha says, I never was jealous of any woman like I was jealous of Khadijah. She passed away like way long time ago. But like she's still so upset because the Prophet is like living her moments, living her memories every day. He doesn't stop forgetting, he doesn't stop remembering her. So then Aisha radiallahu anha says that jealousy carried me. So then she goes and says, لَقَدْ عَوَّدَكَ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has replaced for you, right? لَقَدْ عَوَّدَكَ اللَّهُ مِنْ كَبِيرَةِ السِّنِّ. So Allah doesn't replace an old woman for you. Allah doesn't replace an old woman for you. In other words, what she's saying, I'm a young, attractive, she's the youngest of all the wives, 100%. So she goes and says, Ya Rasulullah, why do you keep mentioning her? Why do you keep talking about her? Allah has replaced you with something better. I'm better than that. She's trying to hint it. Then she goes and says, so I saw such anger. She said, I saw such anger, غضبا. لَقَدْ غَضِبَ غَضَبًا أُسْقِطْتُ فِي خَلَدِي. She goes and says that I saw such anger that my heart collapsed. She's like, he was mad. He was mad. His face changed. And then she started, this is what we should do. This is what you should do. Like, like that low key when things are not going anywhere, you're like, Allah, please, Ya Allah, please. Ya Allah, please, Ya Allah, fix the problem. So he says, Ya Allah, if you take away the anger of the Messenger of Allah, I will never mention anything bad about her again. Okay? And I want everyone to understand this. This is not just the Messenger of Allah being upset. He doesn't just have to get upset for himself, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upset. So this had to be done. So that no one speaks bad about Khadijah radiallahu anha, like we spoke about before. Okay? So when the Prophet ﷺ saw what I was facing, he said, Kayfa qulti? How could you say that? How could you say that, Aisha? Then the Prophet ﷺ goes and says, لَقَدْ آمَنَتْ بِي, right? She believed with me. وَكَذَّبَنِي النَّاسِ, when everyone rejected me. لَقَدْ آوَتْنِي, she provided me shelter. وَقَدْ رَفَضَنِي النَّاسِ, that when all the people rejected me, threw me away. And he goes and says, and he made it sting. لَقَدْ رُزِقْتُ مِنْهَا الْوَلَدِ وَحُرِّمْتُمُونِي, right? And حُرِّمْتُمُوهُ مِنِّي. The Prophet ﷺ says, I was given children from her while you guys weren't given children. That is like a thing like that. He hits her hard. He reminds her, says, oh, you don't know about Khadijah. You don't know how much I love her. You don't understand who she was to me. And so the Prophet ﷺ actually afterwards, Aisha radiallahu anha says, then he then continued to mention her night and day for a month. The Prophet ﷺ made it clear, no one's allowed to talk about Khadijah radiallahu anha. May Allah be pleased with her. Allah to be pleased with all the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. I want to finish up with these points, mashallah. Again, that's where her story really ends in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, she had her children, and those things will continue to go on forever, you know. And there are a lot more other points, but I just want to really finish with this one, okay? Something that we have to take home. Something we have to take it home, okay? It's really hard for people to just look at good qualities, okay? It is the hardest thing in the world to just look at the good qualities of your spouse, especially after being married for so long. You only see bad after a while. You only see mistakes. The nice lovey-dovey stuff only lasts, you know, for quite a short amount of time, honestly speaking. And then you kind of come into the real world where this person is a normal human being, and you know they have faults, they have mistakes, and you know things are not done right. The toilet seat is left up. You know, like, you know, there's like a, you know, like, and really dumb things too, like, you know, like the water glass was left on the table, so it left a mark on the table, like stupid things like that, you know, really dumb things. And that just like, oh, I can't believe she did that. And then like, you and I would tolerate that from anyone in the world, but if it's the wife, dinner's not ready at time, that's it, you know. So this is the thing here. If you want a marriage to work out, you have to remember what destroys a marriage. What destroys a marriage is focusing on bad qualities. Again, from my humble experience of what I've seen, whenever people come in to talk about their counseling problems, always bad qualities. So one of the first things we actually do is say something good about her. Say something good about him. And it's really hard. It's really hard because they never praise each other. No one even talks good about it. Have we ever even said, I like this about you? When is the last time we said, I like this about you, honey? You're so great at this. No, it's really, when was the last time we said, I love you? The easiest tasbih in the world to make sure the marriage will last is 25 times daily tasbih, Allah, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. If you can, you know, I can afford that, just to bear with it, just to struggle to say those words to our wife, you'll see the marriage last, inshallah. So what I want to mention here though is what destroys a marriage is focusing on bad qualities. The Jannah at home will surely begin to fade, and then fires will start to grow, things will start to emerge, and eventually the house will go up in flames. You want to be very careful about that. Make sure that when we're speaking about our spouses, look at the way Khadijah radiallahu anha was. When the Prophet ﷺ needed her, she was there. When the Prophet ﷺ wanted to hear good things about himself, she was there. When he had a very hard day, did she go and say more bad things? No, she made sure to keep him praised and keep him happy. Okay? Marriages work when couples recognize each other's times of fatigue. When we are tired, the other spouse should recognize we're tired. And it's not the time to go and say, and by the way, the garbage wasn't thrown out. By the way, the dishes aren't done. By the way, the kids need. It's not the time for that. There's a time and place for these things. And we have to recognize these things when we're married. Okay? And they try to help each other at these moments, inshallah ta'ala. Okay? And they speak about each other's beautiful qualities and overlook the bad ones. If you can maintain that, inshallah, which is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which I want to end with. And what really summarizes Khadijah radiallahu anha's life, she only saw good. And she only spoke good. And the Prophet ﷺ only saw good. And he only spoke good. And that's what you notice about them. That's why the marriage worked out so well. 25 years, that's a shining marriage. That's a beautiful, gorgeous marriage. 7 children, mashallah, that's an amazing marriage. That's a marriage you and I dream about. That's only going to happen if you and I take the sunnah, which is what? We actually just start talking good about each other. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La yafrak mu'min mu'minatan in kariha minha khuluqa radiya biha akhar." The Prophet ﷺ said, a believer should never hate his spouse. A believer should never hate his spouse. If he dislikes a quality of hers, he will definitely find another quality that he likes. What we learn from this is that the wife is designed or the spouse is designed to have qualities that we won't like, and qualities that we will like. You and I have to overlook the bad qualities and love the good qualities. And that way we'll become Jannatis, inshallah ta'ala. Become people of Jannah. We ask Allah ta'ala that He give us a beautiful house in this world, a house of that is resembling the house of Jannah in this world. We ask Allah for tawfiq that He gives us a Jannah Firdaus with our wives, inshallah ta'ala, and hereafter. We ask Allah that if we lost our spouse already, Allah to reunite us with our spouses, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah ta'ala that He makes it easy for us to live a beautiful life like Khadijah and the Prophet ﷺ in this life and hereafter, inshallah. We ask Allah that when we enter Jannah, we can see that beautiful couple and see like, wow, that's you know, because these things are realities when we get there, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.